welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I've read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a speaker and community strategist on digital minimalism, accountability, and building thriving circles. Of course, none other than Miss Kelsey Green.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here today.
Welcome, Miss Kelsey on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Daniel. So, as you mentioned in that really fun intro, my name is Kelsey Green, and I do a couple different things. I am a speaker, I am a community strategist, and a facilitator. And right now, I am really focusing on two things that I think really intersect in a pretty serious way, and that is digital minimalism and building in-person community. So I think that's what we're focusing on today. I run a mastermind called Summit in Six. That is a high accountability mastermind for women entrepreneurs and creatives to help them finish up their big summit task or goal in 6 months. And I have an a course focused on building in-person community called How to Build Your Circle.
How to build your circle. Building thriving circles. Interesting, Miss Kelsey. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom today. Thank you. And today, let's talk about, of course, digital minimalism. What was the specific moment or the growing feeling that made you realize that digital habits were no longer serving you? What is slow burner, a single dramatic breaking point?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it was more of a slow burn. And basically, I do a lot of online digital, marketing. A lot of my platforms are online, and there are some amazing things like connecting on this podcast together with you, right? Today, of course, and a lot of really strong communities online. So I don't want to negate the amazing things that can happen and the levels of connection that can happen in the digital spaces, right? But
Mm.
you may have seen some of the recent fairly abundant research about what the the type of connections that we're building online, what it's doing to some of our in-person connections, as well as our creativity, our focus, and our ability to bring our work into the world. So basically, we're doing a lot of consuming content and less creating our own content, bringing our own things into the world. So it's sort of transformed over time, but I really realized that I was in stuck in that trap like lots of people. I have a business that's mostly online. Create content. I'm on social media, but then I started to go a little sideways and you end up needing to post for your business and then maybe spending another hour on social media, not really accomplishing much, right? And you don't feel great when you get off of there and you haven't really done anything. So that's, at the most basic level, I think people are starting to realize that this is not really filling their cup any longer as it may have when it first started and you were able to connect with people that you literally hadn't talked to maybe in, a decade or so.
How is philosophy of digital minimalism as laid out by Newport different from simply taking a 30-day digital detox? What makes this more sustainable lifestyle?
That's such a great, insightful question. Thank you. So, you may be aware, your listeners may be aware, there's a lot of really neat apps and hacks out there, physical products to manage your digital use. So you can put apps on your phone that literally turn off your social media at a certain point. You can put your phone in this like a box called an RO box, right? Where it tracks how much time your phone is in the box, all kinds of really neat things. But Cal Newport and others, of course, suggest, especially in the book Digital Minimalism, um, that it's really more so about creating an ethos of how you want to be showing up in your life, in your relationships, and really that is going to be how you're going to be able to manage your digital use. For example, connecting the way that you use the digital platforms and tools with your values. So if your values are around community, family, things like that, making sure that your digital use is aligned with that. And so he's really suggesting, as you said, more of a philosophy, more of an ethos around digital use versus trying to do some of the challenges, the hacks, etc. I will say one really neat way to elucidate, you know, your use and see if it's something that you want to address or if it's problematic is to try something like a challenge. On the website here, you can see I have a screen-free challenge that I run, and that is 1 or 2 different Sundays each month, and it's a 24-hour no screen Sunday, and people have a tough time with it, right? So that's a really neat way to just kinda test and see how tough is it for you to go 24 hours without screens, and then you can, from there, decide, are there changes I wanna make? Is it something I wanna investigate in my life? Because truly that compulsion to check social media and be on screens will become very apparent during a 24-hour cleanse, right?
Yes, for sure. What makes it more sustainable lifestyle if you're having these digital minimalism? What was the very first concrete change you made to your digital life?
Yeah, thanks. The the first thing that I did, I would say, is turn off my sound notifications, with the exception of my mom.
Mhm.
She was recently in the hospital, and any calls from her will come through on sound.
Yes.
Past that, I don't have app notifications on to begin with, and I don't have text or call sound on for the most part. If there's an emergency, if I'm running an event, of course, that might be different, but I'd say 95% of the days, no sound. There are also some studies that show that when your phone is next to you, even if it's face down, you are your brain is your attention is more fractured. So you actually are performing worse when your phone is even just nearby. So I will physically put my phone away out of sight. And then lastly, one of the things I'm still working on, because I admit I am on a journey like many others,
Yes.
the thing that I'm working on is no screens from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And again, that's with the ability for my mom to call through if she needs to. But past that, I want to be off. No streaming, no Netflix, no computer from 7 p.m. And then no phone until 7 a.m. But because I write, the exception is I can write in the morning. I get up about 5 a.m. I can write from 5 to 7, or I can do a deep work project, but no mucking around, no messing around, on social media on the desktop, right? Because you can also end up doing that. So that's really the changes that I've implemented first and foremost, and then I strive to do one of these screen-free challenges per month.
Cal Newport's core principle is to only use technology that substantially supports your deeply held values. Can you share an example of a technology you cut out because it failed this test and one you kept because it passed?
Well, I can share yeah, such a great question. I can share an example from today, actually. So, I have recently started going to the gym and I have a trainer. And the gym turns out to be a place that a lot of people hang out on their phones, and it just would drive me crazy. So, I always wanted to have I don't want to have my phone in the gym. I just want to get in and get out. And I have a clipboard, very analog for writing my reps and my weight. But my trainer just gave me access to a very cool app, right? That tracks your reps, tracks your weight, and then over time you can see your progress. And that's a compromise I'm making. I don't want to be on my phone if I can help it at the gym, whatever. But in this case, that's a cool app. This is her training system. And so I will do it. Right. So that just came up today. But one thing that I'm working to cut out is just social media. I will
Mhm.
probably have a presence on there ongoing. I use third-party scheduling tools like Buffer, Hootsuite, Planable, those kinds of things to help to push content out without having to spend time on the platforms. But ultimately, I'd like to not be going on to social media at all.
Miss Kelsey, the solitude deficit. One of the Newport's most compelling arguments is about the critical importance of solitude, being alone with your own thoughts. How did you realize you had a solitude deficit, and how do you now actively cultivate it?
Yeah. So it's interesting because when we talk about things like rest, we have this hustle culture, productivity culture, and then we say, okay, well, we need to do self care and we need to rest. What that means for a lot of people is scrolling on social media or having a Netflix binge session. And I'm absolutely not judging that. I can do both those things with the best of them, I think, right?
Yes.
But what I started to realize was that I needed a different kind of rest to really refill my energy cup, and that looked like spending more time in solitude and doing things like staring into space, going outside, looking at the trees. If I was driving, I would try to turn off all the sound and just be with my thoughts. And I think this is something that we used to have more of as a default because we, of course, let's say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, didn't have these platforms, right? And we didn't have
Yes.
smartphones. So anytime we weren't physically with people, we were often by ourselves. And of course, there was TV and such, but it was a lot different. And bringing that back is tough because it feels so unnatural for us now that we are so used to being connected online. So solitude is a lot more difficult, but the benefits are so vast. I think that being in true solitude can help you connect with yourself, of course, but then also actually connect with others. So you are able to physically show up for others better, right? And strengthen those in-person relationships.
Better indeed. And Miss Kelsey, a key tenet is a field to void left by mindless scrolling with high quality analog leisure activities. What is one such activity you've rediscovered that now brings you a genuine satisfaction?
Yeah. I think it's very simple, right? But going for a walk without a
Yes.
podcast. I love podcasts so much. I bet you do
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Um, of course. So I could listen to podcasts all day long. And the temptation is, well, I'm still walking if I'm listening to a podcast and I'm learning and supporting the podcast community, and that's great sometimes. And sometimes to go for a walk a lot, there's a person that termed coined the term a long, boring walk without any music, any podcasts, any audiobooks. That's it. Just you walking around. And I know that there's some research about the movement of walking and helping to process different emotions in your body when you're tuned into that. And that's one really easy thing to try. Especially try it without taking your phone with you. Now, if you live in a dangerous area, if you're worried about your physical safety, take your phone, whatever. But
Yes.
trying to actually distance yourself physically from your phone and be okay with that is a really really interesting exercise. So a long boring walk.
Long and boring work. Okay, and walk, I should say. Miss Kelsey, as a speaker and community strategist, what are your short term and long term goals?
Hmm. Yeah, so I have the Summit in Six mastermind that starts with a new cohort every quarter. So the next one starts in January. And that is pretty fun because I use a code word of focus now as one of the three pillars of the mastermind. That actually means setting digital boundaries, right? So that is the way that I help these women get to their summit. So the goal would be, to keep the mastermind going and get women in there. I want to help hundreds of women, create, bring, and finish their book is really a common one, finishing their book, bringing that work into the world. And then how to build your circle, as we talked about earlier, is a digital course. My goal is to help people, especially adults, right?
Mm.
In their 40s and beyond. And retired folks have a tough time with this. Rebuild the kind of in-person communities that we used to have. And I wouldn't say the United States has ever been the best in terms of community and villages and the support of, people around you, I'd say, as well as some other cultures have. But we can do that. You can cultivate that. I truly believe that. And we are seeing the research show that it is physically detrimental to your actual health, the same as if you were smoking a ton of cigarettes, if you were eating, terribly and you were very obese, you know, loneliness and not having people around you has the same exact impacts or worse in some cases as these things that are affecting your physical health. So, my goal is to help as many people as possible to build these in-person communities. And the course covers how to make friends again as an adult, right? Yeah.
Yes, as an adult. For sure. Miss Kelsey, and good luck to your goals and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people want to be like you?
Well, I would say that uh, you know, this is tough work. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough to create boundaries in your life. If anyone out there has ever set boundaries with family or friends, this can be awkward and kind of tough to do. But what's actually really interesting is to set boundaries with yourself and follow them, right? Take them just as seriously as if you were setting boundaries with other people. So I would say, as one piece of advice, that things like managing your digital consumption is very important. It's crucial for young people right now. If you're a parent, if you've heard of books like The Anxious Generation, Stolen Focus, you know that this is very, very, very important for young people. It's also very important for adults, right? And I guess the piece of advice I would give is it's okay that it's going to be a little tough and awkward at first. we're all used to looking at our phones when people are talking. We're used to letting sound notifications distract us. We've just gotten really used to the way things are, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I would say, as difficult, awkward as it is, push against that, push against the addictive nature that the tech companies have very successfully created with these platforms, and try to create just a little bit of distance every day between you and the devices.
Well, thank you for that advice, Miss Kelsey. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. I'd say anything by Cal Newport, but if you're interested in this topic, especially digital minimalism is going to set you up with, I think, both the philosophy as we talked about and some of the actionable strategies to help you with this.
Yes, indeed, Carl Newport. People, and before we wrap up our discussion for today, Miss Kelsey, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in the third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in fourth season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Kelsey, this is not one time fix, but a lifelong practice. What is one piece of advice or a single mantra you would give to someone just starting their digital minimalism journey, feeling overwhelmed by connected world?
Yeah. I would say a mantra to think about is, this is going to serve me for the rest of my life. So, baby steps starting now, whatever little things you can do is going to be worth it because this is going to serve you forever.
Baby step for sure. Baby steps. Miss Kelsey Newport's more recent book, Slow Productivity, argues against the frantic pseudo productivity of a modern workplace. How does a digital minimalism set the stage for achieving a calmer, more meaningful form of productivity?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you ever have gotten into the mode where you have a lot of work to do, a lot of deep, important work, but instead you sort of hang out in your email, do a bunch of little tasks, you're checking things off the list, you're taking calls, you're writing texts. By the end of the day, you feel very tired and you feel like, okay, I just worked a full day, but you didn't really get anything done. You didn't really make any progress on your projects, right? On the deep work, on bringing something new into the world. I mean, you just showed me all these podcasts. So I feel like you seem like a very productive person. Well done. But a lot of people, their job is modeled uh, to really be in the shallows of work. So they are expected to answer the phone all the time. They're expected to respond to texts. They're expected to respond to emails, etc. But the issue is that that makes it very difficult to actually sit down and focus and do deep work. And that's the kind of work that I'm talking about: building a business, changing an organization, being a strong leader, right? That's the kind of work that is sacrificed when you are in the shallows of just being hyper responsive in the digital platform space.
Miss Kelsey Green, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So, as mentioned, the website that you pulled up earlier, thank you, is kelseylgreen.com. You can find me on Instagram under the same handle, Kelsey L. Green. And the programs are Summit in Six Mastermind, How to Build Your Circle will launch in January. And if you want to join a screen-free challenge, you are able to do so via the website there. I'm going to launch the dates for October the next couple days and the subsequent months. So if you're interested in trying this out, head over to kelseylgreen.com.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Kelsey Green because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like empowering advocacy to come. So, Miss Kelsey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Likewise, Miss Kelsey, I'm inviting you again to my other podcast, Abstract Essay, and let's talk about being a digital minimalism. More to come, people. See you soon.